yeah, no, flip. How's life on the other side of the pond? I mean, a lot of people don't realize it, but I think this podcast has been 4 years kind of in the making. We were planning to do this back in COVID. And then I know we had issues here with power and the Wi-Fi and just never got around to it. But how's things that side?
Yeah, man. No complaints at all. We've settled in so well. It's unbelievable. Everybody here in Texas has been incredible. Honestly, the way they just made us feel welcome and get us settled in is couldn't ask for anything better.
Yeah, and a lot of what you have done has influenced a lot of people and a lot of youngsters in the industry, myself included. I mean, yes, you've done everything from e-commerce stores to books to starting podcasts and all that sort of stuff. So I don't even know where do we start. Firstly, what happened to Kingsview? What made you decide to jump on the big bird and fly over and start a new life that side?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. That kind of takes me back to COVID days, and I'll tell you a quick story about it. I was literally out. I was out hunting in the Karoo, and I had a client with me, and I mean, you know what the signal's like in the Karoo. You very rarely get signal. We were on the top of this hill, and his phone managed to get signal, and all of a sudden it just went crazy. He said he was getting messages coming through, and he read them, and his face just dropped. And I was like, "Is everything okay?" And he said, "It's from my travel agent." And she's like, "You have to get out of South Africa. Like, if you can get to an airport, get to an airport and just leave." And I was like, shit, what's going on? So anyway, we started reading up more about this COVID thing and everything was happening. And long story short, we managed to get him out the country just in time before everything shut down. And then it was literally just a case of me sitting at home with my wife, because my wife's business was also affected, and us being like, what now? Like, holy shit. Everything just shut down. And being a very small outfitter, not having so many clients under my belt, or years and years of having clients and money to fall back on, it was a case of just like, what do we do? So, from then on, you kind of start scrambling. You figure out, how do we get a little bit more money coming in? How do we earn bits here and there? And I wanted to try and keep Kingsview Safaris relevant. But again, you can't go to the show. So what do you do? And I've kind of always prided myself a little bit on trying to think outside the box. And I went onto podcasts to find out about marketing small businesses, doing this, doing that. And I was like, there isn't many small podcasts about Africa or hunting in Africa. And I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not really a chatty guy. I'm actually quite sort of shy and a bit of a recluse. Yeah. But I was like, I've got to give this thing a go and just try and keep my business relevant. And it kind of just snowballed from there. And I just kept doing one episode after a time and kept going for it. And then all of a sudden I got an email from a gentleman that said, I really like what you're doing. Can you send me a quote on a hunting trip? And for me, that was an incredible moment, and kind of just built on from there.
So did you use the podcasting purely from a advertising point of view, or did you want to highlight the industry in any way, shape, or form?
No, completely selfish. Just 100%, 100% all about me. The idea was just to get past clients on, really good friends of mine, and you'll know, like, when guys come out and hunt with you and they leave, I know it's cliche that they leave as friends, but god damn it, they do. They leave as such good friends. And I kind of just sent out like an SOS email. It was like, guys, who wants to be on the podcast? Please talk about how amazing I am as a PH and how good the business is. And I need people. And they were great. They sort of shared their experiences. And then as I started getting that feedback from other people, then I realized, okay, there's actually something a little bit more to this than just self-promotion. And then I started reaching out to other outfitters, other PHs, and being like, guys, do you want to come and talk on here? And it kind of just snowballed from there. So I had no idea what I was doing. I really didn't, and still don't. But I just want to highlight how cool this industry is. And I think that's keep doing that, then it'll expand.
Because you've had some big names on your podcast, something I've been very nervous about doing? Because I think with big, essentially guys that have been in the industry for some time and kind of know their story, you kind of get like intimidated about what sort of questions you want to ask, or how do you ask the questions to highlight. But you've done a very good job, especially like on your JLN Smith podcast, and when you interviewed Jim Shockey and stuff. So what, just from those perspectives, what was your initial intention about getting those guys onto the podcast? Because like you highlighted, you started off promoting your business and you as a professional hunter, and getting those guys on. I don't know if they've ever hunted with you or not, but what was the intention behind that?
No, again, it was just trying to get the podcast noticed. And of course, they are some of the biggest names in the industry.
Yeah.
I think the cool thing about the hunting industry is that our famous people in the industry, like the Shockeys, like the Jalen Smiths, the Ivan Carters, they're not massive global stars, if that makes sense. But in the hunting circle, they're really good, popular guys. So because of that, they're kind of a little bit easier to get in touch with. And it was literally just a case of sending out an email to the guys, and they responded. And then I was a case of like, wow, okay, these guys really want to do the podcast. And I mean, obviously, they both hunted Africa extensively, and I wanted them to share their stories. And I was very nervous because I'm thinking, what do I, like, you can't just take someone like Jim Shockey's experiences and cram it into a 1-hour episode.
Yeah.
And what happened was Jim and I had actually spoken for like 20, 30 minutes before I'd even hit record. And same with Jalen Smith. And the fact that they just were like asking me questions and how things going, how you guys doing through COVID, you know, what's your operation about, was incredible. And it just calmed me down. Such nice guys that I was like, oh shit, I actually have to record here. You know, these guys are, they're making me feel good. So it was a pleasure reaching out with those guys, and they definitely helped expand the podcast from there. And then the funny thing was that I realized bringing on just normal guys, you know, old Joe Blogs that has been to Africa too, was getting just as many downloads and just as many reactions as the big name guys. And then I realized that I think people just want to hear about hunting in Africa and the whole experience.
Yeah, and I think that time of the what we were going through, especially with the lockdowns and all that sort of stuff. I mean, we never had those campfires that we could go to and talk crap with a bunch of mates around the bonfire or anything like that. So to be able to hear their experiences on the podcasts and stuff was always something special, and kind of like you reminisce on those days, you know, because you really, I had a moment. I think I was actually listening to your podcast when you interviewed Sue, where you really deep dive into like the small things that make this industry and our country so special. And I think it allowed us to have those intimate moments going forward. And so yeah, I love it. But yeah, I mean, obviously we spoke about doing the podcast together and stuff, and how life would have it. But I followed your journey quite intensively, and what led you? I know you said you enjoyed writing and you wrote during COVID times and stuff like that. So what incited you to write the book? It's called Life of the Modern Day PH, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's called Take It From Us, and it's basically I've always been fortunate that I have this ability to just write. I don't know where it came from, because I was terrible at school. I hated it. I was always in trouble. You know, I'd rather play sports and chase girls than sit down in the classroom and apply myself. But I've always had this ability to sort of write. And I'm actually working on a book at the moment again, but that's another years down the line type of thing. But what happened with me was that I sort of gave a couple of young PHs a good couple of chances. When I was a youngster starting out, I found it very, very difficult to get opportunities from guys. I didn't hunt for a lot of the big operations. I didn't hunt for some of the bigger names like you have hunted for. It was helping out here, helping out South African hunters there, that type of stuff. So I didn't get a lot of real good experience. So when I was comfortable with my business, I thought, let me try and give these guys one or two opportunities. to just tag along, maybe do a hunt here, maybe do a hunt there. And I very quickly realized that these youngsters were way over their depth, to the point of where it could jeopardize my business. Like I couldn't babysit these guys. I couldn't be like, don't do this, don't do that. You guys should be doing this, and look after my clients and my business reputation at the same time. And I kind of came away and I was like, wow, like I can't believe it's to this state. Was I like that? And I definitely was. So I came up with the idea that I had some experience, but not a hell of a lot, that I could probably relay to some of these guys. But I knew some of the people in my areas, and the guys that are in that book had this incredible wealth of experience and knowledge. So I just started phoning different outfitters, and I was like, this is my idea. Can I send you a questionnaire? Put some experience down, put some advice. I want to kind of make an easy book for a lot of these youngsters to read, to just give them a bit of a nudge, just help them along. It wasn't to take away from the schools or anything like that. It was just a case of sharing their experiences so that some kid can read it and be like, okay, I understand now. Just something like that. And what really impressed me about doing the book was how amazing the outfitters were all willing to work together. Like, it was incredible. And I'm sure you know it. Like, we've got some people in our industries, they will drop everything they're doing at the drop of a hat to help out fellow PHs, fellow outfitters, anything to try and make the industry, a little bit better. And I was blown away. They did, and we managed to put together a cool little book.
So just touching base on the youngsters question for you is, doing that exercise, what did you think one of the big issues were around it? Was it the attitude of the youngsters coming in, not wanting to learn? I've seen some scenarios, especially in some of the situations I've been in, and a lot of the youngsters think they arrive there and they know it all already. They've already, I mean, they've done their PH school and they've rocked up and they're ready to go. They're ready to take on the buffalo, and they know better than anyone else. So I always thought that was a very delicate road to travel.
Yeah,
I was very fortunate when I started out. We had a lot of older generation professional hunters, so I could tag along with them all the time. So my question is, do you think, number one, the youngsters' attitudes need to change towards the industry, or number two, has the industry gotten too busy for the older generation PHs now essentially to be able to accommodate these guys and take them under the wing and make them their responsibility to go forward for future generations?
Yeah, that's a great question, Dill. I would say, from the aspect of the older chaps, they are very happy to dish out advice, to pull you to one side and say, listen, chum, we don't do this, or this is how we do it. But in order for them to do that, it has to come from the younger guys. We're talking about some old Duggar bulls here in the industry. Like, they don't want to mess around with these youngsters and everything. But if you come to them, they'll more than gladly give a bit of advice and say, yeah, sure, this is how we do it. That's how we do it. And I've always found a lot of the older gentlemen very sort of willing with their time at the right time, if that makes sense. Don't come to the guy when he's on his sixth hunt of the season and he's been hunting for 2 months straight, type of thing. Like, you got to pick your moments. But in terms of the younger guys, what I realized was that I kind of had to say to them, like, I don't care if you can shoot a springbuck at 400 yards away. Like, you're not pulling the trigger. You are not the main character in the story. You're the bottom of the pile. You've got to learn a lot. You've got to collect the bags off the back of the truck. You've got to, if you see your client's boots are wet from the rain, you go and fetch his boots and put them by the fire and make sure his socks are clean for the next day. Like, you have to understand that there are levels to this game. And yes, you finish top of your class at PH school, and that's great. But you still have so much to learn. So I think it's a little bit of humility. There's no denying that the guys are eager. The guys are very confident. They want to get into the industry. But it's the smaller things that it's like sitting around the fire. For me, I'm a big proponent of sitting around the fire, talking to your clients, diving a little bit deeper, forming those relationships and building that trust. That unfortunately, a lot of the younger guys, they were kind of like a deer in headlights. Like they didn't know what to do, where to sit, how to act. And you kind of want to say to them, just chill and let it happen. But also understand that you still have got so much more to learn. You're not just coming in as the top dog. And I think, yeah, a lot of the kids didn't really realize that at the start.
Mm. Do you think the industry's made a quite a significant shift that way towards valuing the experience more than the trophy at the end of the day?
Yeah, 100%. I do. Um, I think now with all the information out there, with the social medias, with the shows, it's quite nice because you're going to get your hunters that are going to be interest orientated, and there are places for them to do that. You're going to get hunters that have realized that's not for them; they want the experience, and there's places for them to do that too. I think it just comes down to, in terms of a client, putting in that extra bit of research and finding out what is right for you. But I truly believe that the industry has come leaps and bounds, and it's an incredible industry now. It offers a little bit of everything for everyone.
Mm. Jono, then you dabbled a little bit in the e-commerce stuff with your t-shirts and
Yeah,
stuff like that. What was the reasoning behind that? Because I did a podcast with Wayne the other day, and we were chatting about secondary incomes as a professional hunter. You know, what are you doing outside of the season? How are you sustaining your lifestyle and all that sort of stuff? So was that e-commerce bent more towards that, or was it just something you just thought, well, let's experiment here a little bit?
yeah, that was so that I could keep sending my kids to private school in South Africa, basically. Um, it again, it's just something that I mean, I can't sit still. And during COVID, like there was nothing else really to do. We had a family farm, and there was sheep and cattle and things to keep us busy. But I just wanted to see what else was more out there that was
Mm,
tied to the hunting industry. You know, everybody nowadays is coming out with merchandise and these sort of e-commerce businesses. But the hunting industry is still the African hunting industry, excuse me, is still quite a very specific type of niche. And I kind of put the t-shirts out there and got some incredible feedback, and guys were on it, and it was good. But I quickly realized that it's difficult to run that business from South Africa via US producers. And, South Africa we're so far behind in terms of what they
mm,
have here in the US. It's really difficult. But I learned a lot from it. I got some cool feedback, and it's something I'd still like to start up here in the States. But again, it's something that I would probably put back towards the PHs, especially freelance guys. And I'm sure we'll talk about that soon. Is that
yeah.
you got to look at different options. You don't necessarily have to have a full-time job, but we live in an incredible time. There's things out there to do. You just got to open your mind, and you kind of just got to say, fuck it, and do it,
Mm,
and give something a try, and learn from your mistakes and keep going. And that's all I was doing. I had a young family, mouths to feed. My business was affected. My wife's business was affected, and you're like, I have to do something here, and
yeah.
and we did, and it got us through a lot, and it worked out really well for us. So a lot of those guys that just sit back and say, I don't have hunts for this season. You're like, well,
Mm.
get out there, man. Put your boots on and go and find something else to do.
Where would you suggest, or how would you suggest the youngster get into the industry, and what sort of avenues can he approach? Maybe not to outfitters directly, but what sort of avenues can he approach in wanting to start I mean, I'm sure you get a lot of messages. I mean, I think every second day I've got a youngster coming
Yeah.
into the DMs asking, I want to become a PH. Where do I start? We know that the industry is overflowing with professional hunters out there. So starting, like you said earlier, it's a bit of an intimidating experience, and it's heart wrenching at times because you get turned down a lot more than you get accepted. So where would you suggest that a lot of these youngsters could maybe look at avenues in getting into the industry?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And it's one of the chapters that I wrote in the book, which was this very type of thing. And the first thing I tell a lot of the young PHs wanting to get in the industry is that as an outfitter, if you send me an email that says, to whom it may concern, please see my attached resume, you got no chance. Like, I won't even open your resume, because you've just copy and pasted that email to every outfitter out there in the hopes that you're going to get a lucky chance. You're basically just fishing. You haven't shown me that you care about my business, or you know about my business, or you are going to offer me something. Now, that might sound a bit selfish, but what are you going to bring to the table for me, for my business? Because as you say, I've got a line of not only young PHs waiting there, but experienced guys too. You got to bring something a bit extra. So what I'd say to a lot of the guys is that build that sort of that rapport, that relationship. We know this industry is built on relationships, and especially with social media. Go on to, like, your outfitting business. Go onto your Facebook page and you post up a cool picture of a bushbuck. Put a comment there. Be like, "Yes, Bill, that is a corker of a bushbuck. Well done. That's awesome." Then a couple more comments. Then you leave something else. Then all of a sudden you might send an email and be like, "Bill, I know it seems like you're getting nice and busy. I've got a couple of weeks over. Can I just come out and shadow you? Can I come and help load animals? I'll work for free, or I'm really good at guitar. When your guests are sitting around the fire at night, can I just come and play a couple of songs and just create that vibe for you?" Like, me especially, I would have been like, "Hell yeah, come on, I don't have to pay you, but do that vibe." Then all of a sudden, if you got a little foot in the door, you can be like, "Can I help clean the dishes? Can I go and help the guy skin and learn a little bit there?" You've got to build that relationship. You've got to build that rapport. The guys that manage to get work off the bat, they're rarity. There's a few guys that get to do that. Everybody else, unfortunately, you've got to graft. You just have to put in the work and build that relationship. And now with social media, you also have the opportunity to build your own personal brand. Like, imagine if someone like, I don't even know, Remy Warren, an American guy here with the YouTube, like, incredible bow hunter, absolutely phenomenal. Imagine someone like that, with the amount of followers he's got, with the amount of knowledge he knows. If he applied to an outfitter and said, "Can I come work for you?" That outfitter would be like, "Oh yeah, like, yes, bring all your people, bring everyone you know." So you have those opportunities to build a little bit of a reputation for yourself. Now, I'm not saying you have to go out and shoot a whole load of animals, but you could start small little videos, small little snippets, talking about the South African industry, talking about yourself, what you know about animals. I even put up an example in my book of, this was completely a fictitious sort of example of let's say there's a young woman that wants to be a PH, okay? And she just so happens to film a video of herself, I don't know, guiding her sister on a zebra. And they shoot the zebra, they set up beautiful photos. She talks about, what to look for with the zebra, where to shoot it, the different stripes, why the stallion, a whole spiel about this. And then tags female PH or Eastern Cape huntress, whatever. And then there's an outfitter out there that he might have a family coming out, and they say that their daughter wants to hunt, and they would prefer it if their daughter could be guided by a female PH. All of a sudden, you just hashtag female PH, this video pops up, and you're like, there we go, happy days. So there's so many avenues out there. It's just a case of thinking outside the box, trying your hardest, and building those relationships. But don't be lazy and just send an email with your CV and expecting that to be enough, because it's not going to work anymore.
Yeah, and obviously through social media, you develop your own personality, and I think that's one of the biggest benefits in this industry, because personalities click with one another, and if you click with somebody on social media, you enjoy what they're doing and stuff, you're essentially going to be attracted or drawn to wanting to investigate a little bit more about these individuals. But Jono, on that point, your experience now being across the pond in the States, you've mentioned Remy Warren. Do our South African, and I hate the word influencer, but our South African representatives of social media, YouTube channels, there's a bunch of guys out there, are they doing a good enough job for that to become a sustainable income on its own? And are they doing a good enough job representing our industry as a whole? Because if I look at the American side of things, now being involved with Carbon TV and all this sort of stuff, the Americans are really, really good at doing what they do, promoting brands, getting sponsorships, all that sort of stuff. But they also have the facilities to do that. They've got camera equipment at a click of a button, um, and they've got public land that they can continuously hunt on whenever they want. Are the South African social media or influencers, whatever you want to call them, are they on the right track in becoming that sort of popular, or doing the industry that good from the side?
I think they are, and I mean, I know this is your podcast, so I don't want this to come across too biased, but I think for what example yourself, what you're doing, the way that you're building your brand, the way that you're getting the messages out there, guys are listening and they're appreciating it, which is nice because that tends to be the way that the world is going at the moment. Everyone's on YouTube now. Everyone is looking on social media and watching these videos and sharing them. And I believe that this African hunting influencer, whatever you want to call it, is ripe for the picking. There is huge space for more PHs and more guys to get out there and get that information out to the rest of the world to say, look, this is what we do and this is what we offer. In terms of the guys here in the States, they really do appreciate it and they enjoy it. The only thing that I would say is that if you are full of shit, then the guys will very quickly lose interest in you. The guys that tell it like it really is, that are genuine and show good content, those are the guys that get a lot of the followers and get their messages out there. So I think for a lot of the South African guys that want to promote what they do, promote their own brand, the industry, whether it's their own outfitting business, the more honest and real you are, then I think the more welcomed you'll be in places like the States. I've actually just come from a podcast that I did with another guy. He's got a hunting lease just down the road from the ranch that I work on. And I chatted to him. People can hear in the interview where he said, he was like, I just enjoy that you guys just speak candidly about how the industry is. Not necessarily the bad things or the juicy gossip or anything, but very simple, straightforward information. And I appreciate that. And then he proceeded to sort of say, there's guys out here that have got the whitetail pages and elk guys that you can just see that they're fake. They're not really in it for real reasons. And that's what I'd say is probably my biggest advice to anybody that wants to start the African side of it, because there's huge opportunity. But stay genuine and just keep it as real as you can. And I think a lot of guys will appreciate that.
After this past couple of weeks, it's I kind of feel like this question was always going to come about, but I try to avoid it anyway. But we've spoken about it. I've had a tough couple of weeks in the South African industry. I generalized where I shouldn't. And I feel like I have, I crossed that line, and I feel as honest as I wanted to be, I shouldn't have generalized on the bigger picture. I should have, because there is, in our industry, there's a very small minority that are doing wrong. But the problem is that them doing wrong is hurting us in so many different ways. And I got onto a lot of conversations and I reached out to a lot of people because, it struck a chord with me that I've set like really good outfitters in the industry, guys that I've respected growing up and I know are doing exceptional work, because that wasn't my intention. And one of the guys I reached out to, he asked me a very simple question, and he just said to me, he said, like, what is your purpose? Like, what is your why? Why are you doing the podcast? Why are you doing YouTube? And why are you doing all these things? Like, what is your purpose? And I've dwindled on it for some time now, since Sunday. And I want to ask you the same thing. What is your purpose on the podcast? What do you want to, I don't know if achieve is the right word, but what message would you like to share through your platform, your social media, your podcasting?
Yeah, again, a great question. And before I answer that, just to touch back onto what you sort of were bringing up, I think also the South African industry itself is an incredible industry, as you know, as anybody that is in it knows. But we are also all very protective of it. It's constantly coming under attack from the ARA groups, from legislation, from government. So everybody wants to sort of protect it and look after it and shield it, because we don't want to lose it. And there's a lot of people that rely on it. But at the same time, with that being said, we need to learn to handle criticism a little bit better, and we need to learn to handle these things in a little bit more of a mature way. For myself, example, I said something on a podcast that was taken out of context. People didn't agree with it, but the way that they responded was fantastic. They responded by going onto the podcast and holding a mature conversation about it, which is fantastic. And I think if we are prepared to, really take on one of our own and show this oak that what he said isn't right, then we need to learn the ways to do it and go about it. The avenues are here. Go onto a podcast, release a statement on social media. We need to understand that the narrative at the moment is up for grabs, because especially after, with the US elections, I think everybody can see now that mainstream media, people are like, we don't believe you guys anymore. What you're saying is full of nonsense. We want to go to the podcast. We want to go onto Twitter and YouTube, and that's where the narrative is. And for once, I truly feel like now is the time that the hunting fraternity, we can really kick up a fight here and take it to these sons of bitches and control our own narrative and actually say, this is what we're doing, this is the way we're going, and this is why. So when there are these moments where somebody generalizes about the industry or says something that we might not agree with, we can say, okay, I'm going to release my own comments or release my own statements. Attacking someone with 10 comments and calling them all names under the sun is not going to help anyone. It's not appropriate. But I still feel like we need to learn, a little bit more sort of that way of handling it. And then to get onto your question of, for me personally, again, it's still a bit of a selfish thing. It's a different sort of selfish in terms of what I want from the podcast, because before it was about promoting Kingsview Safaris, and it did an amazing job. Now it's selfish because I just love talking about the industry. I love hearing people's stories. When you reached out to me and said, do you want to do podcasts? I couldn't have typed quicker. I was like, yes, I want to do it. I enjoy talking about South Africa and the hunting industry, and I love hearing stories from people that have been to South Africa and PHers and outfitters. So for me, it's 100% selfish because I love hearing stories of Africa and I want more of it. And anybody else wants to listen, they're welcome to.
No, and that's, you've hit the nail on the head there. Now, I think, but also from our side, like, it's just to touch back on that topic, was we've also got to hold a very strong responsibility, and what had happened in that particular question was also taken out of context, but also I need to realize that there's a much bigger responsibility. So when I do choose my words, I've got to choose them a lot more wisely. And I think going forward I've learned a hell of a lot. I've learned, like, there's been a bunch of people that reached out, offered a hell of a lot of support. Whether they agree or disagree on the topic, it's completely irrelevant. But what the initial idea around my podcast and what I've always wanted to do is create those honest conversations,
Yeah.
Is I think for too long, there have been hidden agendas within the industry, guys sweeping things under the mat and trying to turn a blind eye to it and stuff. And we don't understand that it could be like a festering sore that's just slowly getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And at the end of the day, it's not going to be a slow demise of the industry. It's going to be a massive collapse, like we saw with Cecil the Lion and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, Jono, and that's why I think just chatting to you was also it just puts a lot more difference into perspective, because that's how we make the industry better, right? Is through different perspectives, and ultimately we get onto the right channel. But from from what you've mentioned now, you're not coming back, but
You mean back to South Africa?
yeah.
Well, that's it. It's still up in the air. So it's all depending on if we get a green card, um, that which we're in the process. But it's obviously it's a long time process. So I've said it on my podcast. The visa that I'm on is a limited term visa, and then in that time you can apply for a green card, and then it will, you know, you can get permanent residency. But look, I'll have to say that before we came out here, my wife and I, we were very nervous. We were very hesitant. We literally sold our farm. I sold my truck. We sold all the furniture in our house. We gave up a lot. We then realized we couldn't get our money out of South Africa. That's a whole other technicality. So we literally had, I think I had like maybe $2,000 in my pocket, and we just went. And the people of Texas have been incredible. They really have. They have been so welcoming. My kids have got unbelievably good friends. They were at a great school. My wife is making friends. It's Thanksgiving today, and we've literally had like 5 or 6 different invites for people wanting to bring us here. And as much as I love South Africa, born and bred, my wife's born and bred, kids are all there. You kind of don't really think about it here because it's so welcoming and everyone is so nice. They really, really are. In terms of going back to live for good, I don't think so. We definitely go back for holidays, visit family, friends. But the American people here have been so welcoming, helping us getting settled in so well that it feels like home now. I can truly say that.
I must tell you a funny story. And I was hunting with a good mate of mine, a client, and was it last year? Yeah, probably last year, September. Your wife dropped in on one of the comments on his photos because he had a Smokies barbecue cap on. And she's like, the best barbecue in town. And I was like, how the hell do you guys, somewhere along the line, this is all cross paths, and it's such a small world we live in, and it makes everything worthwhile when you understand how small the hunting community really is, because it's big on a scale, but really a lot of us know one another internally, and we deal with one another. We have interactions on social media, WhatsApp. Life's just become so easy. But being a hunter, what would you think that us as South Africans in the industry could learn from the way the Americans do the hunting that side? Has there been like any points that you've kind of picked up and been like, shit, that's a good idea? Maybe, South Africa could benefit from that.
Dude, like literally this morning was one of those scenarios. So I bought myself a little hunting tag. We'll probably get 1 or 2 whitetail for the freezer type of thing. And I was thinking a lot about the tag system and how it sort of works here. And yes, it's got its bad sides, but it's also got its good sides. And then today in the post, I received a booklet, like an A4 size booklet from I think I can't remember the Department of Fish and Wildlife in Texas, or whatever it is. But within that booklet was all the public land maps, where to hunt, the regulations, the bag limits. Inside the book it was these little tips and tricks. They suggested what ammunition to use for turkey, for javelina. Then there was this and the regulations. You guys can park here between this time. It was packed full of information, and it got me thinking. And I know it's not this simple that you can just apply this type of system to South Africa, because we're very sort of different in the way we go about things. But I think South Africa could learn a lot by the way that it really sort of manages and looks after its wildlife in terms of what's available to the public. So what I mean by that is not necessarily the ranchers, the guys behind high fencing, that type of stuff. But I don't see why we couldn't have public land hunting in South Africa. Now, I know some guys are going to say, well, poaching is going to be rampant and all these types of things. But these guys here literally take the money that you paid for your license and they put it straight back into conservation and management. And they do all these types of things, which is incredible. And I think South Africa could learn a lot by not the private guys, but again, the public, the departments of wildlife, environmental affairs. They need to make sure that that money gets utilized a little bit better to protect those animals that aren't protected under private land. And I'd like to see a lot more about that. And even with the local meat hunters in South Africa, those guys, they could also play a real big part in it, I think.
So you're saying, when I was involved with one of these outfitters, one of the deals was, especially like with Addo Elephant Park, they used to put out these massive cull packages, and you would have to tender on these cull packages. And in essence, you kind of saying, no, well, hang on, let's build up a quota on what we need to take out of these parks on a yearly basis, whether it be 5, 10, 15 warthog or kudu, whatever it may be. Let's put it out on a tag system and let's draw it, in essence, because you guys work with a draw, right? So some species will work on a draw, so it's a lack of a draw if you draw elk or whitetail, whatever it may be. So you're saying, in essence, you put in for the draw, you pay $500, $1,000 up front, and if you get draw and you're lucky, you get to have the opportunity to go and hunt out in Addo. Is that something that is that what you're like referencing type thing?
Yeah, 100%. Something along those lines. So generally the tags is more sort of your more elusive species, a lot of your sheeps, your elks in certain areas. Whereas down here in Texas, it's a little bit more like you'll buy a hunting license for whitetail, turkey, or whatever, and then you may go to a ranch that's low fenced, and the landowner might let you hunt there, or you might be part of a hunting lease. And I think something similar could be done in South Africa, where Addo, I think the Thomas Baineses, I might get that one wrong, a couple of other the smaller reserves, they might say, look, this is South African land. This is effectively open to all citizens of South Africa. You can't come as an outfitter and bring clients to shoot on these properties. Whether they set up maybe an association or a co-op, where every South African citizen that wants to hunt there, they might chip in a bit of a yearly fee. Not much, but then everybody chips in. It's a bit of a cooperative. That money goes to repairing fences, setting up facilities, campgrounds, all that type of stuff. And then they draw tags, a warthog tag, a kudu tag, all these types of things. And then they close up hunting season. And then those guys come in and they hunt what they do. I think that's going to solve a lot of problems for the South African guys. And it's also going to manage a lot of the numbers a bit better in the parks. Because as you know, with the parks now, they've done a fantastic job in building the wildlife. But some of those parks, the animals are just bursting at the seams. There's almost too many. And people might say, yeah, but the animal rights activists aren't going to like the hunting. But they don't like the capturing and put them on an auction either. And they don't like them starving during a drought because there's no food. So you're not going to win either way. Whereas if you have this sort of tag co-op system, it's a better way of revenue coming in. It's easier to manage. It's more controlled. And I think it would solve a lot of problems for South African in general.
Ben, do you think that the South Africans, and I wanted to touch base on this with the political climate in America, and you're probably going to have a better first-hand experience over there, and to get the vibe around Trump being elected. I know what he did for us prior to COVID. I mean, he boomed the industry immediately. I mean, it was like a light switch. Is that something that's going to happen? Because my concern is that it's been kind of the theme this year on my podcast, and I touch base with it. Call from Jono and a couple of other guys is, where does this leave the South African hunter? Are they going to be forgotten again because the industry is going to boom, and we're anticipating that? Or is there still that unique place for the South African in the industry?
No, South Africans are going to suffer. Simple as that. I think the chaps, they need to pull their socks up. They need to understand that, look, the outfitter hunting industry in terms of South Africa, as old as South Africa is not an old thing. I think really sort of trophy hunting kind of sort of came around the late 70s, maybe early 80s, and it's just gotten more and more popular since then. So more landowners are taking part in it and they're wanting their slice of the pie, which is fair enough. I can understand it. But a lot of the South African guys haven't adapted and moved with those trends. Now, I'll say this, I haven't had the best experiences with South African hunters. When I had my outfitters, I tried to dabble in that market once or twice, and I very quickly washed my hands of it because for a lot of the guys, it's not viable and it's not worth it. And it's all very well for the South African guys to sit back and cry and complain that they're running out of places to hunt and prices are going up. But they need to come up with a system that is going to work for both parties so that they can stay relevant. Otherwise, they will. The better the hunting industry in South Africa does, unfortunately, they are the guys that are going to lose out in the long run. And one of the things that, again, that they do here in Texas is the hunting leases, which is something that I've been quite fascinated with, where you get a group of guys, maybe 8, 10, 12 guys, whatever it is, and you come to the landowner and you say, we'll pay you 100 grand or 150 grand up front. And for the hunting season, we want to camp here. Like, these guys just come in camper vans and that's about it. They make a fire, they just have camp chairs, it's nice and chilled. But then we do the feeding, we put up blinds, we get one buck and one doe each a season, and you get your money up front, and then we're out of there. And I don't see why the South African guys can't do the same. You know, get a bunch of buddies together, find a landowner that maybe hunting might not be his main thing, and say, Worm, if we pay you R1 million up front, I know it might sound like a lot, but if we pay you R1 million up front and we get to hunt your place, we each get 2 impala, 1 kudu, and a wildebeest. And then if we want to shoot a sable or something a bit more than that, then we'll pay that separately. But here's your money up front. We'll manage it. And then from then, the guys can process their own meat, get more people involved and just make it a little bit more manageable for them. They know they've got that area. So it might work, it might not. I'm just, pulling it out the top of my hat. But what I'm saying is, I think the South African guys need to understand that this industry is just going to grow and grow and grow, which is what we all want. And they have to look at different ways of staying involved. Otherwise, they will get left behind, unfortunately.
On that point, Jono, with the industry growing, do you think South Africa has a sustainable model as far as animals is concerned going forward? Is that something that worries? I mean, I referenced this on Sean's podcast is that a couple of years ago we were running sable special at 5,000 Rand. Then all of a sudden there was an abundance of them. We dropped the prices. You could shoot a sable for as little as $1,600. And they slowly but surely, as the demands increased, but so has the stock revenue started dipping. And now all of a sudden the prices are climbing. And going back to Cole, the podcast I did with Cole from Jono, he had a beautiful way of how he saw our species, and something I've never done in the industry. But he valued it as a commodity. It was a resource. It was a land resource. That's, South Africa. This is what we produce, and I don't think a lot of us have seen it that way for a very long time. I got tied up in a lot of outfitters that saw this industry as like a retail store, stock in, stock out. We've got to just keep stocking the game farms. But I must reference that a small minority of outfitters, but. But do you think from where we were, because you were involved pre-COVID, to where we are now, we've got a sustainable market or a sustainable model going forward for what we are going to anticipate with the Trump mission coming in and the boom in the market? Do we have a sustainable model going forward?
Yeah, I think we do. I believe just out of simple economics, it's a supply and demand. There's different avenues of the hunting industry that all work really well together. You've got your outfitters that focus solely on hunting. Then you've got your game breeder guys that are breeding exceptional animals, exceptional quality animals, but they're not necessarily involved in hunting, but they kind of act as a feeder, sort of source to it. We've we're blessed with some amazing national parks that, as I've said, have just got incredible numbers of animals coming in. So I think the model, if you write it down on paper, is spot on. It's a very, very good model. Everybody benefits from the clients getting reasonable hunts, incredible experiences at good prices, through to the outfitter that can earn good money, the PH can earn good money, to the taxidermists, to the shippers. So many people benefit: skinners, trackers, hotel, lodge staff, all of these things. But at the same time, I am also worried that it kind of teeters on this level of fragility, in terms of it just takes the US to say import ban, the UK to say trophy import ban, and all of a sudden this house of cards can just crumble down. I don't want to give the antis any ideas here, but like, it's those types of things that we need to tighten up on, and need to understand that those are the leaks in the boat that need to be plugged, and we need to secure on about, because what we've got in South Africa in the industry is phenomenal and is strong.
Yeah, Jono, so I was just saying, being now that side, has your perspective on what people perceive South Africa? I know you've been to a couple of shows and all that sort of stuff. Is it not bad, but is it as skewed as what we seem, or we think it is, that their perception on coming over to South Africa is difficult and all this sort of stuff? What have been some of the questions that they've asked you, or been concerned about wanting to come and experience a hunt this side?
Yeah. So from what I've noticed, is that you get a lot of people that are very comfortable in the US, and almost have no intentions of ever leaving or traveling anywhere else, because I mean, it's a big, beautiful country. There's so much to do here. And when we tell them that we come from South Africa, a lot of the times you realize that they don't know anything about South Africa, which is incredible. And you kind of got to explain a lot to them and tell them, and you find out that the people that want to go to South Africa will actively go and research it and look at videos and get a hold of guys. Whereas the people that don't know anything about South Africa, there's nothing like enticing them. There's no travel shows, or there's not many people coming to visit that are actually going to like draw them out, and they can be, oh wow, South Africa, I never thought about that. And that's something I've always thought about, is that how do you reach those people, because there's a massive market for it. Then of course you get the other guys that they don't want to do the travel, or they don't know where to start, and hopefully podcasts like yours and the YouTube videos and things can help them just take that leap. And I think that's all it takes a lot of the times, is just get started, chat to somebody, send out a message, and get the ball rolling. But in terms of the people that don't know much about South Africa, I don't know how to reach those people, whether it should come from our government or what, in terms of setting up tourism expos. But there's a lot of people here that are missing out on an incredible country.
Yeah. One of the interesting things, I've been very fortunate in this little adventure of mine to hunt all over the world, and the gentleman I hunted with in Spain, like the Spanish culture of hunting, is still a very and I mean this. I'm going to struggle to put this into words without disrespecting a lot of guys, but it's still a very my dick's bigger than your dick type of thing. They still want to shoot the biggest animals, the most animals, and all that sort of stuff. When I was in Cambridge in Maryland now, and I've always experienced the hunting industry from America, from the clients coming out, and then at the shows. But when I was in Cambridge and we hunted the Sika deer, and I actually put feet on the ground and met the average Joe down the road at the diner grabbing his sandwich before he heads out into the stand and stuff like that, I really realized how contagious the hunting industry is in America, and how these people, these individuals, live for the hunting industry, and it's massive. It's on a huge scale, and from your perspective,
Yeah.
what do you think the percentage of the population in America can actually afford to come out? Because it's no more are the days of where we see the jacket and the tie and the guys making millions and millions and the oil rig owners and all that sort of stuff coming out to South Africa. We are constantly seeing the blue collar chaps and the run of the mill guys. Is that becoming more relevant in the States at the moment?
Yeah, I think so. That's an incredible point that you bring up, because my wife and I were just talking about it the other day. Now my kids have got friends from school and birthday parties to go to, and they play soccer, and you start interacting with other people. And we've been to a couple of birthday parties at some people's houses, and you look around and you're like, wow, this is a beautiful house. And they've got two vehicles out front and a camper van and a speedboat parked over there. And then you find out that the wife is a receptionist and the husband is a plumber. Nothing against that professions, but I'm trying to make a point here in terms of that.
Yeah.
The jobs that we in South Africa might necessarily think are on the lower side. Yeah, and I'm going to speak about Texas because I've only really been in Texas. People are making comfortable, good livings. It's a good, honest job. You're paying all your bills. They're going to Disneyland once or twice a year, and then on summer they got a boat on a lake. Like, they live in very good, comfortable lives. And I kind of just say to these people, like, if you really look at South Africa in terms of the packages, what you can afford and what you get for it, you will be pleasantly surprised at how amazing it is. And I think that in terms of what people earn here, the mean salary, they would have such a ball in South Africa. They would have an incredible experience. And I'd happily put my hat on it that 60 to 70% of people could easily afford a trip to South Africa. Even if they had to say, I'm going to save up 2 years, I'm going to save up 3 years, it's within reach. They can do it. So that old school way of thinking that it's for the upper echelons of society, it's not there anymore. It's for example, I know you chatted with Wayne Dahl, and he Ph'd for me a couple of times, and a hell of a good guy. And I'm glad he started his own podcast because, man, that guy can talk a lot. So by the time he put it to use, but he's somebody that I think is doing a great idea of actually trying to attract those types of people and saying, come to South Africa. You're going to get a good, genuine, honest experience. That's not going to break the bank. We're not talking about crazy fancy lodges or anything like that. You're going to come and hunt the way that we hunt. And he's kind of opening up the avenues to those people to think like, okay, well, we don't have to throw $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 at this. Like, this is affordable. We can do it. And again, the more that they dig into it, they'll see that there's different outfitters for different things. And South Africa literally caters for everybody.
From your Eastern Cape boys, so I'm expecting a biased answer. Yeah, where would you recommend somebody that's coming out for the first time start?
Yeah, that's kind of the golden question, isn't it? And I'm going to try and not be too biased here, but what I would say is jot down like 5 or 6 of your dream animals. The one and those animals that you really want, and then kind of say like, this is going to be the only trip I'm ever going to come to South Africa. And priority number 1 for me is a 52, 53-inch kudu bull. Like, if you start there, then you can start to understand a little bit more that the guys up north, they've got the big kudu. They've got the nice, wide, deep curl kudu bulls type of thing. But if you're saying, I want a good, genuine, wide open spaces, big ranches, hard hunting, mountain type of hunt, then you start looking into the Karoo and seeing how those guys hunted. I know we actually hunted very close to each other where you hunted with your Farley.
Yeah.
To that side. You know what it's like. How stunning is it up there on those mountains? And you just look around for kilometers and you just think, this is an adventure. I can get stuck into it. So what I would say is, jot down on a piece of paper your top 5, 6 animals that you want, and then kind of look for the areas that match that. And then throw that piece of paper away and just go straight to the Eastern Cape because it's the best, hands down.
Jono, touching on animals and stuff, do you think the package system is something that could be a thing of the past in the future because, like we said, clients are focusing a lot more on the experience type of thing, and that's a draw card now. It's a massive draw card, and part of that experience is also passing up the 50-inch kudu bull in the Eastern Cape that you see,
Yeah.
just strutting along on the riverbed or whatever it may be, and the guy saying, "Oh, but that's not on my package," type vibe. Do you think packages is something that's going to be a thing of the past, or is it something that you still think that newbies, new guys that are wanting to come out should look at?
Yeah, you see, I don't quite know on this one yet because I listened to the podcast that you did with Carl from John X, and he brought up a fantastic point. Not
Mm.
about doing the packages and everything, and I kind of took that with a little bit of pinch of salt in terms of like, yes, but John X has got an incredible reputation, and you guys have got a list of clients as long as your arms and that type of stuff. So you might not have to rely on it, but then at the same time, I give them credit in terms of, I mean, look what they're doing on YouTube with their videos. I think we all watch their videos. They're fantastic. So they're kind of being like, this is how we're going to attract you guys. And then on the other hand, the packages are a great way for outfitters to get their pricing out there to attract new clients. But I'm noticing on social media that, especially on Facebook, when guys are putting out packages, great packages, they're getting like 1 or 2 likes. And that's about it. Whereas maybe 4 or 5 years ago, especially pre-COVID times, when someone put up a package, there was 20 likes and 5 comments, and can you PM me this, or is this included? Can I bring my wife? So I think what's happening is that, yes, packages might hang around now, but everybody is doing packages. It's like here in the States. Can you believe they've got mailboxes outside your house here? Like, people actually deliver mail to your house. That's crazy.
I haven't seen one of those in ages.
The first time the mailman pitched up outside our house, we were all looking out the window like this. The kids are like, what's he doing? They don't do this in South Africa. But so what happens is you obviously get a lot of junk mail in your mailbox. And I just look at it and I just toss it out because it's pamphlets and pamphlets of just junk mail. And I think what's happening is that's where we get into with the packages. Definitely a place for them, but on Facebook, on the hunting forums, there's 20, 30, 40, 50 packages being put up a day that the guys are just, it's an overload. How do you sort through that? So I don't know. I can't really give a definite answer to it, but there is a place for it.
I saw your podcast where you guys touched on AI and all that sort of stuff, and I had an interesting conversation. A mate of mine, he's an architect, and he was just saying how AI has kind of destroyed his industry, and he's really stressing about his future, and he studied for 7 years and all this sort of stuff. But I think professional hunting is probably the one aspect that AI is probably not going to touch for a very, very long time. However, plays a significant role in it. But as a professional hunter, do you think currently where it stands now, without the boom and where we've come from, do you think it's sustainable for a youngster to start a family and live his life as a freelance professional hunter?
No. Not if you're just gonna, as I said earlier, send out a message and be like, give me a job. You have to be a little bit more thicker skinned. You're going to have to work your ass off. Just like anything in life, really, any business you start, you've got to get out there. You got to get yourself noticed. You got to build a good reputation. One of the great things about being a PH, which is also one of the bad things for the younger guys, is that you can be a PH up into your 60s. Like, if you really look after yourself and you're one of those good old school buddies, like, you can do this for a long time, which means there isn't many opportunities for the young PHs to get those spots. It's very difficult to freelance. I'm not saying it's impossible, but don't put all your eggs in one basket. Be smart about it. Use social media, build your contacts, build a good reputation. We know in this industry, everybody knows everybody. Keep your nose clean. Be respectful. Be respectful of the older guys. When you do get a chance for an outfitter, you got to understand that, as I said, you're bottom of the pile. Make your chance. take the best of your chance that you can. Even be respectful of the skinners. Be respectful of the guys in the skinning shed, the ladies in the lodge, the ones cleaning the rooms. They're above you in the same aspect. So you're just going to have to work real hard. Unfortunately, the days of dad buying your double cab bucky, you finding a little Jack Russell and running out to your 243 and getting a job is over. So good luck to anybody, but have a thick skin and just stick at it. It might work out.
What would you say to a professional hunter? And again, I don't intend to show the majority of the industry in a bad light, but a very small minority of outfitters out there put a lot of pressure on professional hunters to, shoot the first animal they see, get the package done as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And there are these things that are happening in the industry. We can't turn a blind eye to it. What would your advice be to a young professional hunter put in those situations? How does he handle it? Because like you said, it's tough. It's tough to find jobs. So you want to hold on to the one you've got. You want to please the outfitter. You want to make sure that you're doing the right thing. How do you, as a youngster, navigate that scenario?
It's going to come at some point in your career. You are going to be faced with it, whether you get pressure from the outfitter, whether you get pressure from the client, whether the client's like, come on, just let me just take that golden wildebeest. I know the landowner said it's off limits, but we'll keep this one on the down low. Like, it's going to come whatever. It's going to sound ridiculous, but write down your principles on a piece of paper. Just sit down, write down 5 or 6 of your principles, your morals on a piece of paper, and stare at them and say, this is what I believe. This is the type of PH I want to be. Be respectful of the outfitter's business. We all work damn hard to build our businesses. We all want the money. We all want to not disappoint our clients. If it's a situation where you feel like you can respectfully speak with the outfitter, by all means, bring it up and chat with them. Vice versa with the client. If it's a situation that is impossible and you're just going to feel real shitty inside that you're not going to enjoy it, walk away. No job is worth destroying your morals and your principles over. There'll be other times out there. We all know the guys, we all know the people in the industry. If I find out that there's a PH looking for a job and he did it because of this, I'd say, come on by. Come join us around the fire. I might not be able to help you now, but I'll keep you around and we'll see what we can do from there. So be respectful, write your morals and your principles down and just build from there.
Because we in those sort of situations, we tend to get a little bit short-sighted, right? We think about ourselves and the impact it has as at this moment. But if we all keep doing these unethical, immoral things, a long way down the line, things are going to fall horribly short. And like I said, if at some point I felt like the industry had this like little sore that's just starting to fester, and I was worried about the big collapse. But again, my personal concern is that I worry that the small minority of these bad apples would lead to this big infestation of unethical things going on in the industry. I don't think it will. I think, the South African industry is proven for some time now. The recovery of the black wildebeest, the Oroby, and all that sort of stuff, that we are capable of holding our own. But it is going to take education on the youngsters to make sure that they don't roll out, because it's becoming harder than it was 20 years ago, I'm sure. And I think morally you just got to sit by your guns and hold your own and realize that this is what we're doing for the good of the industry. But yeah, Jono, oh, sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say that even when I wrote in my book, that one of the most important lessons, I believe, the most important lesson that any young PH can learn is to say no. And it's hard. It's real hard. I remember my first ever hunt. I was shitting myself. Like, I was so nervous, so scared. That client could have told me to do anything and I would have done it. I would have been like, yes. I would have been one of those guys that my morals and principles would have gone out the window in a heartbeat, because this is what I've dreamt about. This is my chance. I'll do whatever. I need to prove that I can. And you're right. I think if the PHs can say, look, guys, I don't want to do this, by all means, get somebody else, but I'm going to go another direction, then that's good. It's good for the industry. I also truly believe that there is way more good, solid guys in this industry than the bad guys. We know that. You know that. There's just people will really protect this industry no matter what. And as a young PH, you kind of just got to have faith that the good guys are out there. Again, maybe even just phone one of the good outfitters that you know is a good guy. I promise you, if you just phone that guy randomly out of the blue and say, "Excuse me, Worm, my name is this, this, this. I'm working here. I'm in this situation. I don't know what to do. Bit of advice." I swear to God, that guy will give you the best advice ever and help you out. You're not in it alone. Just reach out to the guys, and that's the strength of the industry for sure. Because a lot of PHs have been in that situation, and we want to help out guys. We want the industry to grow. We want youngsters coming through. You don't have to do it alone. Just reach out to the guys.
Yeah, and another important point would be just be as honest as you possibly can. And I think that was the comment that got me into so much trouble, where I was saying some of the outfitters are like used car salesmen, because my intention was to say that minority of them are, because they get to these shows and they try and bullshit their way to attracting the clients, and getting themselves lying about the hectares that they hunt off of and all this sort of stuff. But as a youngster coming into the industry, I think one of the most important things is that the more honest you are with your outfitter and the client, the better the relationship builds. And like you said, there's so many good outfitters and honest outfitters out there. Part of what I've learned leaving big outfitters and all this sort of stuff, and having conversations on the podcast and meeting American people and the honesty that flows, it just creates such a healthy environment going forward for the future. And initially, that's what we're trying to do. But Jono, yeah. So, what's next for Around the Fire podcast? What plans have you got going? And I mean, what's any other intentions? Any other little, like you said, you can't sit still. Any other projects you've got brewing over there in the States?
I do. I've got a couple of things up my sleeve that I'm working on. Unfortunately, the visa that I'm on is very restrictive. I can only earn an income from the job that I work. That's the reason why I'm here. So that's the only thing I can do it. So I can't really kind of expand the podcast as much as I'd like just yet, and do T-shirts and merchandise and all these types of things. But I definitely have quite a few things up my sleeve, things that I want to do more. I think I want to bring more stories in, from the everyday Joe blogs off the street that went and hunted in Africa and had a great time. I think that's really important. I also want to try and draw a couple more PHs into it. Let's share some stories. In my personal experience, I didn't do much dangerous game hunting. I just got a couple of buffalo under my belt. That's about it. So I don't talk much about the elephants and the lions and the leopard, because I'm a believer of stay in your lane type of thing. And again, I wanted to be honest. So I want to kind of get some stories from those guys, those guys that have done the Tanzanias and the Namibias and those places, because they're incredible stories from those places. Like, that's what people would really like to hear too. So I just keep bringing out some stories and just getting more guys onto it and doing that way. But you have to wait and see. Give me a couple of years. Once I get that green card, it'll be a bit different.
Cool. So part of the tradition on this podcast, I didn't do it with Wayne on the last one, but I'll kick it off with you again. I've got two questions for you. My first question is, this comes from me personally. The second one will come from the previous guest prior to Wayne. My question to you is that, being in the States now and working and understanding that side of things, is it something the young professional hunters could maybe consider in the future? We've seen a lot of these youngsters heading up to the States for harvesting season and all this sort of stuff. Could they apply the professional hunting trade in South Africa and then out of season head over to the States and apply their guiding skills or professional hunting skills in America, especially places like Texas? That's the first question. And the second question, let me get this right here quickly. what is the number one lesson you've learned in your life that hunting has taught you and you apply to every day?
Wow, those are two good questions. I think so. For the first one, I'm going to be very honest, and I'm going to say, unfortunately, not. It is very very difficult to get in the States. Don't let the media fool you. You can just cross a river and walk in. It's not that easy. The visa system that they've set up is extremely complicated. It really is. We went through an immigration attorney that kind of like guided us through it. And the only reason that I could get my visa was because I've got a postgraduate honors degree from a university. And unfortunately, you can't really say, I'm a guide, I've got 10 years experience, can I go guide in Texas? Because the way that the US government thinks is, are you going to take a US citizen's job? And they're going to say, well, anyone here can guide, so why should we bring you in? That's their way of thinking about it. You've got to really justify it. Of course, then there's the H2A program where guys come out and they run the harvesters and they do the plantings and they earn real good money. But that doesn't give you the opportunity to get a green card. It's literally just a case of you come work the season, you leave. So anybody that is interested, you're more than welcome to contact me via email. I'll try and point you in the right direction. But other than that, you'd have to go through an attorney is one. And then for me, the most important thing that I learned from hunting, geez, that's a good lesson, is I think just grit and fortitude. There's a story that I always like to tell my little boy because he's into his motorbiking and dirt biking now, and I'm trying to teach him, when you fall off your bike, you've got to get back up there, son, and keep going, type of thing. And one of the favorite stories that I like telling him is that I had a client and we bumped this beautiful kudu bull, but he ran out of a dry riverbed and he ran up this fucking huge koppie other side and ran down there. And I looked at the client, and the client was basically like, "Oh well, we're going, back to the lodge." And I said, "No, we're climbing. Like, let's go." By the time we got there, we were sweating, we were tired, it was hard. And as we get over the top, I just glanced down below me, and there's that kudu bull, and that client thumped it. Perfect, beautiful shot. And that's just something that I just never give up. Just keep going, no matter how hard something looks. When you see that kudu, when you see that dream pissing off over that hill, that's when you go harder. That's when you push even more and you never stop. And then my little boy's like, "All right, Dad, I'm going to get back on my bike," and just tears off. So it's something that I try and do, is just don't stop, just keep going.
Jono, I've been inspired, and it's been an absolute honor to have you on my podcast. I know this has been a long time coming. We should have done it a lot sooner, but I hope to have you on the podcast many, many more times, because I think your insight is unique, positive, and it's things that we need in the industry. I want to thank you personally for everything you've done for the industry and you're continuously doing. And I wish you well, but enjoy the rest of Thanksgiving. And hopefully one day when I cross the pond there again, we can link up and maybe have a personal chat and do the podcast all over again.
Oh, dude, yeah, you're always welcome in Texas to the side. You're welcome to come stop by, stay with us. We'll have a braai. Awesome. We'll do all sorts of things. But thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And man, what you do with Fair Journal, just keep going, dude. It's incredible. There's a great following behind you. We all support you, and I enjoy listening to your podcast. So thanks for having me on, and keep cracking, man.
Lekker. Chat soon. Shot, Jono.